Bradley, the pastor of Greenwood Free Methodist Church, and you're going to tell us everything we need to know about the Homeless Count Day.
Yeah, we've got it coming up next Wednesday, and we've done this every year. The easiest way I've found to explain it to people, because people are more familiar with this, you know, the school count day?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Like there's that one day a year
Right.
where the government is like, tell us how many people showed up, so that we have a good understanding as to what you have.
Sure.
And what you need.
Yeah, and base kind of how they help based around those kinds of numbers. So the homeless count day is similar. It happens in every county. And in Jackson County, you have this one day that's been assigned to you to go out and find as many homeless people as you can.
Okay.
So we take to the streets in the morning, looking specifically for unsheltered homeless, because we can get the statistics pretty easily of like who's at the interface shelter.
Right. Okay.
They count too, but it's in like a different kind of homeless bracket.
Okay.
It's the unsheltered that we have no numbers of unless we go out and look.
Jamin, does this count impact some of the resources that our county is able to take advantage of statewide, nationally?
Yeah, I mean, if you want the income to help, then you have to find them on that day
Right.
to bring it in. And if you don't, then your numbers are, your financial help is limited based on that.
How are they documented? Like, do you have to get names, numbers, social security numbers, or?
No, not social security numbers, but we go out and we find, we have kind of like a form of information we're looking for,
Okay.
which is name and it really is some basic things that we need.
And how did you get involved in your organization, get involved in this
Yep.
government count?
I have helped with the continuum of care now here in Jackson for a number of years, which is a collection of organizations across Jackson getting together and saying, how can we prevent homelessness further and make sure that people are continued to take care of from homelessness all the way into fruition of life. So that is the focus of the continuum of care. And when I serve, sometimes I'm not great at all the little legal things that show up and know how to feed into those conversations. But when I see something where it's like, I can do that, I pop on. So our church started kind of hosting this and leading this event a few years back, and we've done it ever since.
What's the reality of the homeless population or situation or data in Jackson County?
Yeah, that varies quite a bit, and Community Action Agency a lot of times takes care of a lot of the numbers with this event, whereas I do a bit more of the heart kind of thing. So we've worked a lot with the homeless in our church, and I think if you've lived in Jackson, you've been able to see that that's increased.
Yeah.
And there's a number of reasons that have kind of fed that. But it's more obviously out in the open than it used to be, so people can kind of see that it's something that we need to be able to take care of. Whereas before, you had to look a little harder for it. Yeah. You go under a bridge somewhere and you'd find a camp set up. Whereas now you can just kind of walk through the park and see that people are trying to struggle to get by. So.
You always are asking for volunteers to do this, and I'm sure some people have done this for the first time. It must be pretty eye-opening to volunteers. Yeah,
I would suggest even if you don't find anyone, this is well worth your time because it will open you up. It's unfortunate, but it seems almost always the required assigned day lands on a polar vortex.
Why are we doing that in January?
Yeah, why is it in
There
January?
is a lot of discussion as to why that is. Could we find more people out if it was a little warmer, things like that. Whatever the case is, we don't have control over that. Yeah. That's not, and I think it's like a nationwide thing too, so that varies climate from place to place. But for us, when you come across, there were some pictures on the screen just a little bit ago of places where people are sleeping in abandoned, half broken down buildings behind fences. And I think we've even had, if I remember the stories right that I've heard reported, we've had some people lose limbs in recent times or just pass away on park benches here in Jackson because it's just too cold to get by. And when you hear those kinds of stories and you see those kinds of things and you go out to look for people, even if you don't find them, you find the proof of where they were, it really opens you up as to...
Now, are you Are you, with the volunteers, do you kind of give them a route or give them a few areas to kind of drive by, so you guys have a lot of the county covered?
Yeah, we work with a lot of different organizations at the Continuum of Care to hear about where they have come across different places of homelessness. And then I take all that data and I create maps of like centralized areas to go check. And then we assign people as they come in different maps, which will give them all completely different routes. Some of them are going to end up going down 94, just checking out like, rest stops and things like that. Others are going to end up in big parking lots around Jackson. Others will kind of scour the different alleys throughout downtown. So,
and how do you manage it? Like, how do you not just pick them up and take them with you?
We often bring a supply bag with us. So at least for starters, we've got, here's something to help you out.
Yes.
Secondly, we usually refer them some places where they can get help.
Perfect.
A lot of them already know the places where they can get help, and there's a number of reasons as to either their time has maybe run out to receive what they're looking for in that area, or sometimes they're not interested. I've run into people many times where it's like when they hit that point of homelessness, nobody wants to like admit it or, like have to go to the shelter or anything like that. So there's a number of emotional and physical and all kinds of reasons that feed into it, but we offer what help we can.
Yeah.
What does this count lead to directly impacting our homeless community through what type of resources from the state?
Yeah, so the state's going to look at the numbers that we report back to them and say, well, Jackson, either based on the numbers we found, does or doesn't have a homeless problem.
Yeah.
And we do have one, and our numbers throughout the last few years have struggled to find people on those specific days to really feed that. So
it's been, homelessness has been a conversation in the city and county the last few years. What's your take, if you don't mind, on maybe some possible solutions or help?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always some really extreme ways, like with when we were running a dinner church pre-COVID, we met a lot of homeless people through those efforts. And I had one family in our church just say, we're going to take this guy in because he didn't know where to go. Nothing was working out for him. They took him in, and then it was like 2 weeks later, that homeless man came up to me with, he's like, these are the first keys to my first apartment. You know?
Wow.
So like that's like a radical exchange of, from a church perspective, just pouring love out on someone and seeing that change things. But a lot of times homelessness can come with a lot of habits that you've built up. And so there's a lot of kind of like inner healing that needs to come too. And that's where places like Community Action Agency and the Interfaith Shelter, they're not always just trying to like get you out of your situation, move along. They're trying to kind of walk you step by step. And the Interfaith Shelter does that too, where they're trying to bring you before professionals that can not just like you stay here for a little bit, but really get you back on your feet. And that takes a lot of time and practice, as do any things that, we come across in life and build habits around.
So what else is happening at the church?
Yeah, we launched back in September. We launched a new model where 9 o'clock we come together for like a cereal bar breakfast, and then our service at 10, which can kind of vary as to how that goes about. And then 11, there's kind of like what we call kingdom ministry time, where we have a food bank open up for people who need it, clothing available for people who need it, prayer and counseling for people who need it. So just trying to do a kind of holistic version of model of church.
Sure.
Are you taking donations for those things, food and clothing, or what? How can we help?
Yeah, Compassionate Ministries of Jackson loads us up with a food bank where we deliver. We have once a month we distribute their food, and any food that still sticks around, we just kind of keep it loading up that area, loading up our food bank throughout the month. But they also provide us with bags, so when people call them and ask for help, if they're located around us, we'll just grab some bags and drive over and drop it off, since transportation is often difficult for those dealing with poverty. So people can help. For clothes, though, we try to stay with new clothes. One, because it's just nicer to offer people something new. But two, any business that has worked with distributing clothes, things will just appear on your front step that nobody would ever wear, and then you're just stuck kind of getting rid of it. So we go for stuff that we know people will take, which is new in general.
So for volunteers for the Homeless Count Day, if we're volunteering, what is it you're going to tell the volunteers about what they're going to be doing and what they're going to experience?
Yeah, you'll show up at 6 a.m., which is...
It's early, but that's okay.
I think we've done earlier in the past. But you'll show up at 6 a.m. and we'll kind of give out instructions as to what to do, what not to do. Though we may consider these people as homeless, you got to remember, if you find them, you are walking into their home.
Right.
Yeah.
So say you
That's a good
find,
point.
even if they're just on, like in an alleyway somewhere, this
Yeah.
is where they
That's
have
their
made it
territory.
through the night. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of just like precautions. Remember, you're coming to help someone out, so you'll just, hey, we're here with the Homeless Count, just looking for some details.
Right.
We give you some spaces, don't break rules when you're trying to reach people, things like that. But we'll give you some kind of safety tips. We'll explain what information is absolutely crucial for us to fill in the forms. Sometimes people won't want to give you their information, which is totally understandable. You're a stranger and nobody knows what Homeless Count Day is.
Right.
In cases like that, you'll just write down like visible details that you saw, simply because the organizations will turn the sheets into, sometimes they look at that like, we know who that is.
For sure.
So that's enough for them to be like, okay, we found them that day. So
a lot of people working together on this.
yeah. Lots of organizations, Cross Jackson, Community Action Agency is the one that often makes all the fine details happen, and we just like to get people out there to resource it.
Well, thank you so much for being here, and hope you get a lot of volunteers for Homeless Count Day. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Jamin Bradley from Greenwood Free Methodist and the Homeless Count Day. More of the morning show right after this.